Hi, my name is Kevin, and if you're here, I'm guessing you've made a website and you've struggled with coming up with a nice color scheme, or maybe you're even working on a site right now and it's just not looking as good as it could be. So hopefully with this video, I can help you out. We're going to look at how we can make a fantastic looking color scheme really quickly, and then we're slowly going to build on top of it, add a little bit of complexity to it. One thing this video is not, it's a short video, it's not a look at color theory, we're not diving deep into it, how to make these complex colors work together, and this beautiful, amazing, just harmony of everything. We're looking at how you can have a nice color scheme really easily and really quickly. Let's jump into it. Alright, so here is the site we're going to be using to explore color a little bit more. It's a website that I've put together, but right now I'm using it as black and white. So everything in it is black and white except for my images, which are color, and I left them in there. It does give it a bit of a hint, but you can see everything else I put in here is using either black or white. And let's fix this layout a little bit to center that, because it's still a bit of a rough draft right now. Now, the first piece of advice I would give you is do this. Just work in black and white if you're really not sure in a color scheme. And you all notice I am in Adobe XD here. That is the software I designed this with. I'm not doing it in code, just gives me so much faster for me to do it this way and much more visual. But the same, even if you're just designing in the browser, the same rules are going to apply. Now, the reason I say start in black and white is it just gives you an idea of how things are working without having to stress about color at all. You just leave all your text black, or if you have something that's a dark background, you make it a black background and you put white on it, and you can start worrying about other things like just the general layout and just getting things in place and making things look as good as you can just based on the layout itself, instead of stressing about how to be using your colors. Because really, your layout should work in black and white. A lot of first steps designers will take are to do things in black and white before adding colors, because colors can influence how something looks, but it's not going to fix major problems. It can help, it can improve on things if done right, but your layout needs to work before color comes in, generally speaking, and the color can just help enhance, or if you don't do color properly, as you might know if you're watching this, sometimes color can ruin a layout as well. So honestly, tip number one is just start in black and white. Don't even stress about color. And then when it's time for your colors, this is the first real tip, you're going to keep black and white. Those black and white are always the foundation of any design. But the next step of it is to come in and just add in one color. And this is literally how you can have a nice color palette within like 30 seconds. You want a nice color palette in 30 seconds, go black, go white, go with one color, and make it a punch color. So let's go look at some examples. So here is a Log Rocket. If you don't know about their blog, they have some really good articles on tech here, and you can see they have black, they have white, and they have purple. They have purple going around here. Their logo is in purple, and it's black, it's white, it's purple. It's black, it's white, it's purple, and you get the idea. It's still black and white and purple pretty much everywhere that we go. This is a dark gray instead of black. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but they've just stuck with the basics. They picked one color, and they just went with that color. Here's another example from LLT, not someone I'm familiar with. Oh, they have a fun little... didn't see that when I found this, but they just went with green. They have green, they brought in their green, so it's black, white, green. They do have some brands that they're doing, so you will see other colors come in. They have images with other colors, but anytime they're adding their own color in, they're simply just throwing in a little bit of green. And as I said, they are using some grays. Here, we get more and more things that are just green, black, white. Another example here, they're getting a little bit more interesting. Here we have some different hover effects. They actually have a gradient here, but pretty much a little bit like Log Rocket. They're going with black, white, and purple. Now in this case, they didn't go with black. If you look at this color, it's actually like a really dark blue, I think. So it's close to black. It's like a gray, bluey color, but it's effectively the same thing. You have a dark color, you have a light color, and you have your main one, and let's just say it's black, white, and purple. Now there are a few other colors that come into it because these are different brands that have their own colors. So those are coming in just like images normally would, but anything that's with their own website, it's using purple or black or white. They put the little quotation marks, same thing, the little things here, the arrows, all the little details, they're just bringing in their purple. They have a faded out purple underneath. All their icons are using that purple gradient. Everything is just using that, and it makes for a really nice looking website. Another example where they actually brought in two colors, and I do want to talk, I'm going to come back to this one a little bit when we get into two colors, but we're going to pretend it's only green as well. And you can see that they're just pretty much using their green throughout. So black, white, and green coming a lot in here. And CSS Tricks, if you know, LogRocket I said had good articles. If you don't know about CSS Tricks, they also have some great articles, so I'd suggest them out. Now they have a bit more of a gradient than this Hype 4 one did, where it's like an orange to red, like it's, or pink even. It's a much more obvious gradient, but it's treated like one color. Now it does take a bit of work to get a nice looking gradient. Once you get that nice looking gradient, it acts as a color. Now again, they don't have pure black, they don't have pure white as much, but they're using just those colors through most of what they're doing. Their links are using that color. Anything they want to pop out, even if we come and look in the articles, they're using that. Their links are in a different color, but when we hover on top, we get that gradient coming in. They're really treating their buttons, they treat it like a single color. They have a black, they have white, and they have a single color. So when you come to these color websites and it says just enter a color and they're going to give you a nice color scheme, well, just enter one color. Don't go too crazy. You know, why do you need 5 when we really only need 1? Now we're going to come and see how we can use these types of websites effectively, but let's go and pick one color. I'm going to show you the easiest way to pick just one color, and it's to find one of the images that you like and take a color from there, honestly. So I could use brown in this for sure. So if I went in here and I just chose this to be, let's get like a brownie color. I could even eyedrop it, I guess. Why don't we do that? I'm going to eyedrop from, I want it light enough that we can see that it's brown. So I could do that. That could, right away, that could become my color. So actually, I'm in XD, so let's add that to my colors. And then do that, do my logo. Whoops. Do my logo in that color. Maybe the stroke of this box, the border there. If I do that, it's going to do the fill, right? Yeah. So let's do the stroke of it. We'll use that color. The background here can use that fill. My button, I'll leave gray for now. We'll come back to that. Here, this background color could be using that. The title here could be using it. My button down there could be using it. Here we could be using it. You know, you get the idea. And all of a sudden, now I don't think it's great, but now I have these pops of color coming through, and it's starting to really work and probably look better. Maybe up here I did a bit too much. Maybe I could leave that one as actually just pure black or something like that. So there's a bit of differentiation. But basically I've come up with a pop color, and I just grabbed it from like the most obvious color. It's a coffee website, so I'm going with the most obvious color. Another choice I could do instead of that is finding a color that is sort of at the opposite end. The thing, I have brown, I know coffee's brown. This image looks really nice because we have lots of dark browns, dark colors, and then this super nice turquoise in the background. So why don't I try doing that? So I'm going to edit this color here. I'm just going to eyedrop it. Let's go find that turquoise. I think I'll go with that. Just because anything that was brown is going to switch over to that color now. And now I can see all my colors switching over to that. And I think that actually looks really nice. I prefer that for my color scheme at the moment, knowing that I'm going to come in and add some extra things to it. But even if I just left it like that, I think it's looking pretty nice. I think that looks great. It works really well with my brown. Now, if you're not sure about, you know, I went with turquoise and brown because I know they work together. If you don't know what colors work together, color.adobe.com, they give you a color wheel. You don't even have to really drag anything around on here if you don't want to. I'm focused on the fact that I'm on a brown, which is in the oranges. Opposite my orange are these colors over here, where I'm getting into my turquoises and all of that. So, but if you're really not sure, you come over here, find the color you want. I want that, but I want it to be darker. So I fade everything down, and I just switch it to complementary. And you can see it's going right into it. So colors that are opposite, they're always going to work. So this and this, they're going to work. That's sort of what I did, but I just went with a darker version of it because I grabbed it from an image and I thought it worked really well in my image. So if you're grabbing from an image that looks nice, the colors in the image are probably good. Now, where it gets more complicated is when you want to add more than one color. And the big thing is adding more than one color. We already have 3, and you have to think about that for a second. We have black, we have white, and we have a color. You might be going, Kevin, black and white aren't a color. They're part of our color scheme right now. So you have to consider them as part of your scheme. Don't get technical with me. As far as our color scheme goes, we have black, we have white, and we have my color. So because we have black, we have white, and we have my color, we're up to 3 colors already. And it's a little bit like when you're trying to choose fonts. You have one font, you can make that font probably work everywhere if it's a easy enough font to use. You can use bold, you can use light, you can do different stuff like that. If you'd like a video that looks at how you can choose fonts, let me know in the comments below, and it's something else I can definitely take a look at. But when you want 2 fonts, that becomes a little bit harder. You have to think about how those fonts are working together. Do they work together? Then you go up to 3. That gets even harder because now you have you're adding more and more variables each time. You could technically make something work with 10 fonts. I've seen some really cool posters that just go crazy with fonts. I did something back when I was in school for the cover of the font book that had like the library. It's a book that just had fonts in it, so I wanted to like use as many fonts as I could on the cover. It took me a long time to do. Pretty happy with how it turned out, but it took me a long time to do it just because getting the more fonts you have, the harder it is to work, and it's the same with colors. And it's one of the things I hate with these color scheme sites. 5 colors, what am I doing with 5 colors? That's too many colors to really work with. So even this site, which I really like, and what I'm going to do actually is let's grab the color I have here and plug that in and get a color scheme based on that. So here it gave me this sort of generic gradient, and I go, okay, well that looks pretty, and well this gradient looks pretty too, and look at that, and well this is sort of the one that I'm going with now, right? I have my brown, I have that blue. That's kind of cool. The twisted spot palette, by the way, is pretty much just taking a complementary colors, is the way it generally works. So it's taking that, it's doing the complementary color, and then just variations of that color. So a nice way to work. So my problem with this though is, look, I mean, okay, here's the cube palette. There's lots of cool names. Switch palette again, it's the complementary. But it's coming up with all these color schemes that have lots of colors in them. It makes it hard to work, and it makes it, especially these where there's a whole bunch, or Adobe does the same thing. Let's just go to Explorer, because a lot of the time you find these really nice ones in here. Oh, they've changed this completely. Okay, there we go. I went to color themes, and then I went to most used this month just to get some. And you get these types of themes, or these types of themes that look amazing. They look fantastic. Or even like this one looks really, really good. But again, there's so many colors in it, you start getting lost and you don't know where to work. And that's normal. That's why we start with 1. Because in truth, 1 is 3 already. So the more colors we want to add, the more complicated it gets. And that's why I want to come back to this site for a second, because looking at this, they have 2 greens. I don't really like their 2 greens. Sorry, Paymo. I don't find it works, personally. The bright green and this turquoise, I find they're the wrong, they don't blend together well enough. And it creates this weird sort of thing. So like, especially when you get to these icons and stuff, I don't know. I find it's a little bit confused. So what I would suggest doing in this case is, before you start getting into multiple colors, is actually, let's come back to my color space, because I do like some of the stuff they do here, where you get into these, where I have like this color that's really jumping off. Or actually, I'm going to come down a little bit more. I want, here we go, the Gray Friends, or the, let's even keep going. Wow, they have lots. I want ones that don't have a lot of change. Here we go, the shades or the random shades. Things like this become so much easier to work with, because it's a similar enough color to your dark, to your main primary color, that it gives you some wiggle room and some different things you can do, but it sort of blends in. You know, it blends in with the color that you already have. So let's say I grab this really dark one down here, and maybe I'm going to use that all the way down here for this dark thing all the way at the bottom. And I know that those 2 colors are going to work. And then maybe I could use those in a few other spots too. I could come in here and all of these things, I could set up, and I think I had that as a different color. But maybe I bring in this color onto all of those right there, just to have, like, it's still really dark. I wouldn't necessarily do it for my links, so maybe on my links I want them to stand out more. These 2 colors are so similar. The one thing I would suggest not doing is taking 2 colors that are almost the same. If they're almost the same, it's probably not good. But maybe my links, I want to come in and set up a color, whoops, set up a color like that, so it stands out, just to give an idea of different things that you can do that might work really well. Over here, maybe my button, to make my button stand out more, the background color on this, I could give it that color as well. It's not really popping, but I'm going to add that to my colors anyway. Maybe I come in, bring these in. So again, they're not using the same color. It's something that's going to work. I have to be a little bit careful because the contrast is a bit low on a dark background. But I know by using these lighter or these darker colors that it's going to fit with the blue color that I've already used. And I know it's going to be super easy and it's going to be effective and I can work with it really well. What I could even do maybe is, let's save this dark one here as a color as well in my palette. I could come in and give this whole thing that dark color. And then maybe on some of these things, I could actually give it the lighter color. And maybe that's not actually light enough. So let's just come in and we'll add another one where I'm going to stay in the same area without going to a color theme site. And I'm looking, I want to make sure that my contrast is still high enough, but I'm coming in and keeping with the blues, but I'm coming in with a nice light blue there that works on this dark background. So I can add that in as a new color. Can I reorder those? I can, good. Just to sort of go by the order of light to dark. And then maybe even on these, I can come in and give each one of those. So now I'm just going in on a few details and looking at things I can change and how I'm thinking, where do I want people's eye to look? Like, what do I want them to look at? Or how can I separate the different pieces of information through all of these to get them to stand out a little bit? So just playing around with it a little bit like that. And it just adds an extra layer here by bringing in more colors. Did I need to do that? No, I really didn't need to do that. It looked good. I could have left it exactly how it was. And it probably was, and in my opinion, it looked good and I was happy with it. And that's why if you choose one color, you're good to go. So now I've come in, I've added some variations of that one color. And I think it really, by coming in and adding these variations of one color though, it just helps add a little bit of interest to your site. And I think that's why a lot of people want to add colors, because they do want to add interest to their site. I think on this one, maybe even I could come in and give it the darker background instead, just to get these things to pop off a little bit more, and then use that really light, or was I already using the really light color on those? I think I can leave the darker sign up there, and it's looking pretty good. And there we go. So it's starting to come together. As I said, it's adding a little bit of details now and adding a little bit of extra dimension to the site just by playing with the variations of that one color, playing with your shades, playing with your the shades and tints and that type of thing. Here even, let's zoom in on that a little bit. We can come in and say that this should actually be my light blue, and I was playing with opacity before, but we can leave that all the way up. Maybe my social links get a different color. Let's go with the light one. Just again to break the information up a little bit and make things a little bit more visually interesting. But now you're like, but Kevin, I really do want more than one color. And, you know, we have shades of my color or tints of my color, but we want more than one. Fair enough. Okay, so let's go back to here. Now you could definitely come up with something, and I didn't look at this before on this website, where they actually have like all these different colors that they're throwing up here, and they all tend to work well together. I'm not getting into that in this video. I don't want to get into using like 10 colors on a website. If that's what you want to do, you need to understand color theory. As I said in the intro, this is not a class in color. This is not a video on color theory. I want to look at the simple way you can make an effective and nice color scheme. So the easiest thing to do at this point is decide, do you want something high contrast that really punches, or do you want something that blends in a little bit? If you want the high contrast punch, you find these things, the complementary colors, the ones that pop and they're completely different. Or do you want something more like this that blends in a little bit more? And you make that decision and you stick with it. Maybe you really like this green, you go, oh, that's fantastic. Telling you now, it might be harder to use effectively. It starts coming into this type of world where it's two colors that look like they should work well together, but when you start overlapping them or using them in different things, there's a little bit too much similarity between the two, and I think their tones are a little bit off. It makes it a little bit harder to use. Whereas if you have a big difference between them, it's going to be a lot easier to use because there's a much more bigger distinction between them. So maybe you like your purple. I'm going to go back up. I sort of want to go with browns, but I'm a little bit worried that the brown's not going to be enough. But I'm going to go with sort of a brown like this to start with, and let's see what it actually ends up looking like. So let's say we take that brown color I got and we bring it in here on my border and we try it out. Not as big of a fan, so I'm going to undo. And part of the reason now, I'm just going to look at this, why that didn't work as well, is we have the brown here. And then I had like a different brown on this. I think it would actually work better on the titles if I brought it in there. And that actually works because this turquoise is creating a bit of contrast with the brown that's coming in here. But then I can bring that brown back in. So let's add this to my color scheme. And I'm going to edit it a little bit because I'm not too happy with it. So one thing is bring it in and see what it looks like. And then if you need to make changes to it, don't be scared of changing it. So I could go into the oranges now. And, you know, we saw that there was the bright oranges, and maybe we can get those bright oranges to work. And this is where, if you are doing this in code instead of doing it in a GUI like I'm doing right now, if you do it but using custom properties, it makes your life a lot easier because you can change like a couple of things and you see it a little bit like I'm doing now. I change it in a few spots and then I can change that color in one place and it changes throughout the whole site. So maybe I do want to bring it in as more of an orange. I think it's more interesting. Let's see what happens when I make this button that same color. You know, that does really pop out against this dark blue. So that's, you go, hey, you know what, it's working. You can see a lot of the tones from these coffee images are actually coming into that orange too. So it is definitely using my imagery a lot. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe I'm actually going to come in and give this background color instead. But we lower the opacity way down is always an option. Obviously it looks really bad now, so we need to actually select all those and go back into my colors, and for now I'm just going to do black. Just to say, to give you a bit of a different idea of how you could use something. Sometimes just by dropping the opacity down, it can really help. It's really separating the two pieces now. Now I don't think I'm going to stick with that. Maybe I could even just come in on this. It does take some experimenting. Don't like it. Do I try that with a different color? Maybe. So maybe I could come into here and try, what would it be with a dark brown? Can't see it. No, it's too clashy, or maybe you really like it and then you stick with it and then you add that to your color scheme to use in different places. I think it's too clashy. I'm going to go back to how I had it before, but if you really liked how that looked, it could be something you keep for that. Maybe over here it's something that works, and then I could bring it back down over here into my button. Whoops. And get it set up there. And I probably should have just changed my button component because it would have changed both at the same time. But alas, I did it the hard way. And maybe even my link then could be coming into those colors just because this sort of becomes an orange component, or maybe you like leaving it like that. Maybe the social media links, I don't think they're going to look fantastic because they're sort of blending in now. And this is an important part too, is you want to keep an idea of contrast, and contrast is much easier with one color as well, because here I have really dark, I have a medium for the bigger, bolder fonts, and then my white there, which is very high contrast. Here, it's this nice sort of mid-tone blue. So if I have a mid-tone blue and then I bring in the orange on top, it doesn't quite pop off as much. I see it, but it almost hurts my eyes when I'm looking at that personally. Like my eyes seem a little bit confused about what's happening. It could be a lot worse if I tone this down a little bit and it got into too similar of a tone. It can really get lost completely. And this deals with, I need to make it a bit darker probably too. Oh, we can do it all here. But when, you know, if you're really getting into these places where the saturation, the contrast, all the things are almost the same, the images, it doesn't pop enough. So this is where I had a light blue. It's probably going to work better as a light orange, or if I go into the really dark browns, but I feel like that's not going to be dark enough. So if I really wanted to use the orange, I think I could do it. In this case, I don't really think I'm going to. One thing you'll notice is usually, and you'll see I'm using the orange really sparingly here. There's not a lot of spots. Maybe I could use it up here, but I don't think, I don't particularly like it up here. Maybe I'm going to try one thing where I keep the blue there. So I could try something like that. Maybe you like that more because it really makes that pop off on the second line. But I think I'm just going to leave it like this. I'm a fan of a little bit more understated designs personally. But you'll see I'm only using that orange color in a few spots because the whole point of the orange color is to grab my attention, right? I don't want to distract. I don't want it to be jumping all over the place. I'm here, I see that, and then I get, okay, here's my title. I'm interested, I read it. I'm not interested, I skip to the next title because it's popping off. It's dragging my eye, it's jumping out at me. I go down a little bit, boom, my eye comes down to here. I see it's a sign up form. I might read this text if I'm interested. If not, I keep going. Boom, my eye drops right to here. I'm really using this color to highlight things that are important. I'm not trying to throw it all over the place. And that's the main thing. You want to keep color in general. The reason it's hard to use color effectively is because people try too many colors and they're all fighting with each other. It's the whole principle of hierarchy where you want to lead the person's eye. But if you're trying to use 7 colors, all these colors are fighting for your attention. You don't know what to look at because everything's popping out at you. That's why using one color, black, white, and one color to get your attention. And then you go, okay, now let me try variations of that color. We bring in the tones. It helps lead the eye a little bit. It helps give you a bit more sense of hierarchy through color. And then if you do want these pops of color, you can come and bring them in. And there's different ways of doing it, but be very careful. The less you use a color, but you put it in a few important places and you're consistent with your use of that color, it can really make a website pop and shine, and you're leading and you're helping the user experience. You're leading the person's eye through the website, and you're making their life a lot easier. Now here at my channel, we are usually doing coding stuff. We're in CSS, HTML, sometimes even some JavaScript, and we're making stuff happen. Obviously, this was a lot more design oriented. If this is your, you want more of this, please leave a comment down below to let me know that, because it's gonna, if a lot of people are interested in this, I will definitely keep putting out more design content on top of what I'm already doing. I'm not going to completely change this channel from one thing to another, but if a lot of people like this type of content, I'd gladly produce more of it. And maybe this is your first time here, so you don't really know the other stuff I've been doing. And if it was your first time here and you really did like what you saw and you're still watching now, I'm guessing you did, you can please consider hitting that subscribe button. And this is the end of this video, so thank you very much for watching. A very big thank you to my patrons for your support. You guys are absolutely amazing. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.